Welcome to the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the legacy of Howard University at the highest levels. Today, I have a very special person. You may catch her on the sidelines commentating, NFL football, college basketball with CBS Sports. She's really been doing her thing for a long time. Howard University, Delta, two-time Emmy Award-winning reporter, AJ Ross, ladies and gentlemen. AJ, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks. That was quite the introduction. I feel like a big deal because of you.
Hey, it's all facts though, right?
Yeah, it really.
Right, them two Emmys is facts,
Yeah.
So yeah. AJ, I'm a huge sports fan. Huge fan of your work. Obviously, I known you in passing when we were at Howard, and I've been able to follow you in your career. So first, I just want to say how proud I am of all your work and everything you've been able to accomplish. I know that you've done more than just sports-related stuff. But, I think, if I was a betting man, I would say sports is kind of like your passion. Because I remember seeing you in the Burr hooping a little bit when we was in undergrad.
Not a little bit, a lot. I used to be in there a lot. That's how I met a lot of people actually hooping, playing intramurals. And my freshman year at Howard, I went to a men's game. And you know how girls travel in packs when you first get to Howard? Like, it's like nobody wants to go anywhere by themselves. And I wanted to go to the guys' game. And the girls on my floor, I was Crandall Hall. One time for Crandall, the quad.
Shout out to the quad.
Yeah. They didn't want to go to the game with me. So I went to the game by myself. I can't even remember. I think we lost. I'll say that. I don't know the score or what team, but I remember we lost. And I went to Fuddruckers down the street in Chinatown.
Fuddruckers.
Yes. And these guys in front of me. Yeah, Howard. But I'm 25, though. So, I'm not going to let people do the math. I was a child genius. I skipped several grades. So I'm just 25, even though I graduated a long time ago. Anyway, the guys were talking about the game in front of me. I chime in, and I'm talking about how the guards were coming off the picks shoulder to shoulder. They were doing different things wrong. Turned out they were the assistant coaches of the men's team.
Oh, really?
And they're like, who do you think you are? They asked me if I wanted to be the manager of the team. So my freshman year, I was the manager of the men's team, and I traveled with the team.
Oh, okay.
All over. Yeah.
How was that experience, man? How was that?
It was really fun. I played basketball all my life, and we won states in high school, and my coach played in the WNBA. It was very, very intense, AAU, all of that. And I got an academic scholarship to Howard, so I didn't have to, pursue basketball at the collegiate level if I didn't want to. And I thought, I'm cool. I don't want to, I'm burnt out. I don't want to play basketball. But then obviously my love of the game drew me back. Traveling with the guys was an amazing experience. They actually went to the MEAC tournament against Hampton in the finals, or went up against Hampton and lost.
Were you so when you were the manager, were you there when Ron Williamson, was he on the team?
Ron, Aki Thomas.
Yeah, that boy had a burner, boy. He could shoot from
that was
anywhere.
A really good team. Coach Frankie Allen. It was a great team, and they had a great run. They just didn't, make it to the dance that year. But yeah, that made me miss basketball. And so my sophomore year, I walked onto the women's team.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you played on the team.
Just for a little bit. I made the team, and my dad ended up getting sick. He had he got diagnosed with prostate cancer, but he's fine. It's 20 years in remission now, thank God. But at the time, I wanted to be able to go home and make sure he was okay and support him. So I didn't play, the entire year, my sophomore year. And that's when I started doing intramurals. So I've always loved sports. To answer your question, that was a long answer, but I've always loved sports.
No. I remember seeing you in the gym because I was an intramural basketball ref. So
yes,
that was my experience in college sports, reffing intramurals. I vividly
remember you being a ref, and I think somebody fouled me one time. I had acrylic nails for whatever reason, and my finger was bleeding. And I walked by just to get a Band-Aid, and you were like, "Yo, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I went back in I'm not quitting or sitting out this game.
Crazy. That's crazy. So when you chose Howard, were you always intending on being, in front of the camera?
No, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I went to Howard. I was undecided. It wasn't until my sophomore year that I decided to go with the School of C because I've always loved writing. Writing's always just been something that came natural for me. And when I declared journalism as my major, I didn't know if I wanted to do print or broadcast. And, people kind of guided me towards the broadcast path, and the rest is, it was written. That's how it happened.
Wow, that's dope, man. So tell me about your time at Howard. I mean, so you get to Howard, you're from Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
You from
Steel
Pittsburgh, and what's crazy, I mean, you said you competed at a high level in sports, but you did get an academic scholarship to Howard. Or was it to Howard or to anywhere?
I got a full ride to Howard academically. I had a partial scholarship to Georgetown, to Penn. University of Pittsburgh was my safety school because they wanted, me to stay home, and I was like, I'm good.
So why Howard?
I went on a Black college tour, or I should say my mom made me go on a Black college tour. And I didn't know anything really about HBCUs. I went to a mostly white Catholic all-girls high school.
Me too. I went to all-white high school.
Yeah.
Hated every day of it, but go ahead.
If it wasn't for basketball, we were the best basketball team in the city, private, public, whatever. I don't think I would have stayed at that school. And
then you become a basketball manager as a freshman. I mean, what was the thought process of that? I mean, because now I guess essentially that's taking up a ton of your time.
Yeah, I was never on campus. So a lot of people even now are like, they don't remember me freshman year. I really wasn't around. I wasn't, partying like that. I was on the road with them, or I was always in the gym with the guys. So I appreciate, though, slow start out the gate, because by senior year, I was partying like 6 nights a week. Thank God there were no camera phones. Yeah, it was like a slower progression for me, experiencing all that Howard had to, provide, but I still take away a lot of things from that freshman year experience with the basketball team.
So freshman year, was that the only year that you were the manager on the team?
Yeah, freshman year I was the manager. Sophomore year I played a little with the women's team.
So at what point did you become a Delta?
It was my junior year. Just like I said, I didn't know about HBCUs. I really didn't know that much about sororities, and I definitely didn't plan on pledging anything when I got to Howard. My perception of sororities and fraternities was like they're, for people who need friends, and all the superficial things, like, I just had no idea. And as I got more involved on campus and noticed different people that I thought were doing really dope things, that were in charge of, different organizations on campus, and just were bosses.
Man, because the Deltas were in charge of everything. Yearbook, student government,
right,
homecoming,
right.
Deltas were in charge of everything. Campus pals. I remember it was like, because I was a campus pal, I remember you had pals, then you had like pal Deltas, which was like, I feel like every organization had like, that in it, which was dope. So okay, so you so what made you decide to become a Delta? You seeing all these women, they bosses, they running everything, and you like, yo, that's me.
I mean, it was a combination of that. It made me a little more interested, sure, because, different people were in my ear, like, have you considered it? I'm like, no, I'm good. But then I started to do my research, and any phenomenal Black woman that I would ever aspire to be like, in history, a lot of them have been Deltas, Dr. Dorothy Height and Shirley Chisholm. I could go down the list, but
I'm sure
it'd be an honor to, just continue on that legacy to some sort of degree.
How does that feel like now? I mean, I didn't have any, like when I came to college, my mom was like, do not pledge anything, do not do it. She was like, that's a waste. That was just my mom. I think she was basically saying, you got 4 years and then you need to find a job. So I think that was her way of saying that. But when I look back on it, and I come back to Howard, like the significance of pledging Delta and really being a part of Alpha Chapter, I think that's like super special. How was it when you crossed? Like, what was that feeling like?
It's so funny that you bring this up, because I just found an old, I guess they're little JVC tapes. Again, I'm dating myself, but you know what I mean? I just found it in an old box, and I had to find the camera to go with it. And I had not really seen that or thought about it in some time. It's kind of a surreal experience, just to what you were talking about, to
Because
know
y'all
that you're
take
part
over
of.
the campus. I mean, when you,
There
you
were
know,
thousands of people,
yeah, 'cause,
thousands that came out to see us cross that day. That was spring 2004. Also, what you mentioned about your mom, my mom was not with it. Like,
mm-hmm.
I didn't tell my mom I was pledging. My mom, same as yours, was like, go to school, do what you got to do. And so I hadn't been answering my phone like that. I was, I was pledging.
Yeah.
She was worried. She was like, what's going on with you? Are you knocked up? Like, I'm coming down to DC.
Oh,
What is
really?
going on? So eventually I had to let her know. And, seeing her approval and just her pride that day, because she drove down with some of my other family members and, supported me. It was, a combination of just, warmth and love from every different direction. And there's so much lineage within Alpha Chapter that
Mm-hmm.
you respect. And
I tell you, one time I was, and I was telling Stephanie this, man. One time I was running to the calf. I think I was a sophomore, or junior, and I didn't. And that's, I knew that it was a big deal. Like when people would cross, and you see all these deltas or whoever just take, like, if whether it was a fraternity or sorority, they just take over the yard. There's something big is about to happen. But I remember one time I had cut across the yard, and this is like a Sunday. I was trying to hurry up and get to the calf, running from the towers. And I ran across like the Delta plot. I didn't even know this was like a thing. Yo, this like little girl, it's a woman. She had to be like 100 pounds, 5'1". She like grabbed my arm, like, yo, you know what you just did? I was like, no, what? I was like, what's up? She like, you know what you did? I'm like, no, I did. She was like, you ran, you know what you stepped on? I was like I didn't really get it until like 30. I was like, oh, like I didn't know it was such a big deal. And
right.
that's what's so crazy about Howard though. Every organization has a process in it. You know what I'm saying? Like no matter what organization you join, it's some type of process you got to go through. And I think that is dope because there's so much history at Howard. You know what I mean?
Definitely. It's a rite of passage.
Yeah, for sure, man. So when you cross and you become a Delta, you're a senior now?
Yeah, I pledged my junior year, had a little bit of that spring to enjoy it, and then my senior year, I
Oh
was a Delta.
man, so that's where that partying came through.
Oh, you're drawing parallels that I'm not confirming or denying, but it was a fun year. It was a fun year.
What is that like when you're a senior at Howard, given all you've
Senior
accomplished?
year was crazy because I ended up switching my minor 3 times. Different things at Howard happened with classes not being available and this and that. So I was on my 3rd minor. I needed so many credits to obviously graduate. So I took the most amount of credits my senior year, those last 2 semesters. And like I said, I partied the most. And then there were Delta responsibilities. And I was the sports editor of the Hilltop too.
Oh,
so
wow.
I was doing a lot. And senior year taught me, whatever limitations I had placed on myself were just an illusion, right? Because I was spread very thin. And somehow I had the best GPA my senior year too, managing all of this together. So
I saw that. It was that magna cum laude. I saw that. So you senior year, you're Delta, you kicking it, and you're getting the grades. So you're doing a lot of things right. At what point do you start to think about, are you getting internships over the summer? Like, what are you doing?
I did have a few writing internships. There was an organization called the Street Basketball Association that I wrote for. They were out of, I want to say Mitchellville, Maryland, or someplace down there. I also interned with the NBA when I was in college. So I spent a summer in New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I worked in with their production side. That's actually located in Secaucus, New Jersey. So I got to do a lot with them behind the scenes, and they liked what I did during my internship, that they asked me to come back that spring, my senior year. I went to Denver for the All-Star game, and I got to basically like be a player liaison, like pick them up from the airport, let them know what their schedules were like for the weekend, and did other little odd jobs. But I had some really dope internships thanks to School C.
Taylor
Rooks.
Yeah, Taylor Rooks. So
yeah.
I was watching her in the Breakfast Club, and I think one of the questions they were asking her was like, is it hard for you as a woman to get respect? And I just say this to say not just a woman, but as a very pretty woman, obviously, is it hard for you to get respect and like earn trust, in your role?
Yes and no, because I would argue that it's the same challenges that women face across the board. A lot of industries are, unfortunately, or you could say just it's the way it is, male dominated. if you know your stuff, if you, present yourself in a classy way, there's usually no issues. And obviously you just gotta, demand the respect that you want to receive. So I haven't
you
had,
must have been doing good work because they, like you said, they called you back, right? After working
yeah,
there.
as an intern, sure. But in hindsight, well, we kind of discussed this earlier before you were recording. When I was the sports editor of the Hilltop, I had this little column. I don't even know what the column was called, but my picture was up. And I had said something about, I want to say it was about Ben Roethlisberger's sexual assault allegations at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I, had my opinionated column, and I don't know what specifically was said that prompted these guys. I was walking across campus, and I overheard them critiquing the column like, what does a female know about football? And the byline at the time said Ashley Ross. I'm like, I'm thinking, because I put in work. I'm in the Hilltop office all day, all night. I had my facts straight. It was a damn good column, in my opinion. So I, from that point on, changed the byline to AJ, kind of like a J.K. Rowling. So you just judge the comment or the content on what it was. And that's how this whole AJ brand more or less originated. So people would, if I went a print route or, do a little bit of both, just read the content for what it is, right? Women can know sports just as much as men. Women participate and, thrive in different sports, and they don't get the respect that they deserve at all times. But, we're here and we're not going anywhere.
Well, what about coming from Howard? Did you face any obstacles? Because, we don't have the biggest sports program. So it's not like, we like Syracuse where they pumping out, anchors and journalists all the time. I mean, but at the same time, we do have a lot of representation out there. Was it any difficulties trying to find your way being a Howard grad?
Not at all. To your point, the Howard pipeline is strong. So my first job out of college at ESPN, I'm quite sure because I put Howard University on my resume. That's how I got filtered through the pipeline. So many people want to work for ESPN out of college. Mm-hmm. But once I got to Bristol, there's a surplus of Howard alum in Bristol.
One of the difficulties I had when I graduated was it was kind of like culture shock a little bit. You go from this experience at Howard where I don't want to say things are given to you, but it's almost like a utopia. And it's like it's a lot of diversity because you're not so worried about what everybody looks like. I feel like you're able to like gravitate towards the things that you really want to do, and you're able to create relationships in a real way. But then when you go into the quote unquote real world, you got to find your own way. I mean, what was that like going to Bristol, going to ESPN? I'm sure it's not, 90% black like Howard is. I mean, what was that experience like? Was there any culture shock or any major adjustments? Yeah.
Huge culture shock. You said it. It was a utopia of black excellence, and just DC being the melting pot that it is. Everybody talks about New York being a melting pot, but DC as a city is just an experience. And Bristol is cold. It is like you're on this little island of, actually it is similar to a college campus. I'll say that because it's ESPN, and to me there's nothing really else in Bristol but ESPN. So it was a culture shock in many ways, but also your coworkers became friends pretty quickly because that's all you have out there. So you support one another and try to make things fun in the middle of nowhere, Connecticut, and you're working long, crazy hours, and you guys, we call each other ex-cons. Even now, I'm in a group chat on Instagram called ex-cons because, the bonds that we were able to build have stood the test of time.
So when you're at ESPN, what is, what's your goal there? Like, are you trying to stay in sports? Are you trying to work your way in front of the camera?
I was content at ESPN just being involved in sports. That's how much I loved sports and still do love sports. But I was like, okay, this is it. This is, the worldwide leader. And I'm getting to do different things from working with SportsCenter to my basketball knowledge allowed me to work on the NBA studio shows. I was the only female on the NBA studio shows. And ironically, I knew more about the game than other guys that were a part of it at the time. So they paired me with the coaches.
Wow, really?
And the analysts, yeah. Like if they wanted to play to be
interesting, man, because you were at Howard, you were a sports editor, what is that like being at Howard? It's not a big sports school. Obviously, everybody loves sports, but and you're a woman, not the stereotype, but that's traditionally not something you see women do at HBCUs. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know, what was that experience like, and did it help prepare you later on? Because it seemed like you would have to be really self motivated, in that role as sports editor at a school like Howard.
Well, I started out, everybody in broadcast journalism or just journalism has to contribute to the Hilltop at some point in
Oh,
their,
okay.
coursework. So I started out as a reporter, general assignment reporter. It wasn't just sports. Then I think I worked my way up to lifestyle, entertainment editor. And the guy who was the sports editor before me, he graduated. And being that I'd always, volunteered to write articles in the sports section and all that, and they knew my interest, the segue wasn't, a difficult one, but I'd also built up enough, confidence in my work to that point that, it was a seamless transition.
Oh, dope. So how long were you at ESPN?
I was there 2 years, and basically I was at one point the only person that worked with the coaches and the analysts on the basketball shows. If they wanted a specific play illustrated or broken down, like I knew the game from a point guard's, point of view, that like I understood what they were saying. No, seriously, because other guys in my group didn't necessarily know, they needed more explanation. If you say I need the triangle offense, I'm like, bet, I don't need another, tutorial. I got you. So
Really?
I worked with Kiki Vanderway,
Oh,
Jamal
really?
Mashburn,
Wow.
Greg Anthony, Allen Houston. There's a lot of guys that, just rotated, Rick Carlisle, and got to go to the 2007 NBA Finals in Cleveland when the Cavs got swept by the Spurs. So I had like a great experience at ESPN, but the way it's all set up and the things you do behind the scenes and writing scripts and all of that, the anchors get all the shine. And not to say that they don't do their own, respective work, but it just like the bug in me to be on camera never went away. And I had great mentors like Stan Verrett and Jay Harris that encouraged me like, hey, if this is something you really want to do, you got to, just go for it. So I ended up leaving and I went to a very small market.
What market?
In Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
Wow.
Where I had to write, shoot, edit, carry all this camera equipment by myself. And, I did everything starting out.
So what was that like, being, Howard grad, going from an environment like ESPN where, like you said, they're the worldwide leader. You're meeting all these cool people who you probably grew up watching. And now you got to make a decision like, okay, I want to get in front of the camera. So, you kind of got to pay your dues. What is that like socially, just living in an environment like that?
It's hard. There were a lot of times where I was crying myself to sleep at night. I felt like I was all alone. I'm, 8 hours from Pennsylvania. I'm out of, reach for most major cities where you can have like some sense of normalcy, what I was used to in DC. But it definitely made me a tougher person, a more well-rounded person. And when you live in different areas, like, I would have probably outside of that job never lived in South Carolina, right?
Mm-hmm.
It makes you realize a little bit more how people can grow up in a different setting and have a certain mindset. And that's all that they know. And until you experience it firsthand, it seems like something so foreign and, impossible. How could this person think this way? And then when you're in the midst of it, it's like, okay, well, maybe I can see if this is all they know, this is how, it is for them.
So were there any moments, you say you crying yourself to sleep, were there any moments where you like, man, this ain't what I thought it was?
Yes.
I know journalists typically go through that route of like, I was in this town doing this, I was the cameraman, the driver, the editor, blah, blah, blah. But, when
Right.
we come out of Howard, a lot of times we come out thinking, okay, we about to be Oprah like on day 2. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I didn't think I was going to be Oprah, but I thought I would be paid, right?
Yeah.
Like my first job, at ESPN, my first job with ESPN, I got paid $30,000. My first on-air job, I got paid $28,000. Like they pay you nothing when you first start out in these small markets. If it wasn't for my parents being supportive and helping me, it's almost an elitist type structure. It's not, if you can't have some extra money on the side. It's hard working your way up, but it's a different landscape now too, where you could go on social media and different platforms and build your brand that way. But back then, when you had to like start in a smart market and then go here, go there, it's very hard.
What are some of the challenges, like if you could walk me through maybe like a really tough day back when you're in South Carolina? Like, what is that like when you still got deadlines you got to meet? I'm assuming you probably got to get ratings, and you probably got to just
Right.
be your usual great self. But what's like a tough day in South Carolina, like when you got to cover the news?
That was a while ago. Tough day back then, because I was doing everything. You're again carrying a whole bunch of heavy equipment, and you're editing in the field. It's not like you go back to the station and edit, and you do everything in this little car, this little van. So you set up your interviews with the tripod, do all of that. And it's not just a one-time thing. So maybe you're cutting a story for 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. And it's this rapid fire, like rinse and repeat, and sweltering heat down there, just trying to look like, you didn't break a sweat, but meanwhile you've been sweating. A lot of days I didn't eat. You just don't have time to even catch your breath or catch your thoughts because you're just racing from one thing to the next. So that was a very typical day.
What about like code switching? You know what I mean? Like code switching.
Yeah.
Like how important is that? And even it's like the gift and the curse. I say that because in one sense you can relate to players in a way that maybe your white counterparts can't. You know what I mean?
Right.
But at the same time, I'd imagine when you're on CBS and you a sideline reporter, you got to turn that on a little bit. And I've seen you master this skill. So, I mean, can you, where was that groomed at? Because I've seen you like, damn, okay, all right,
Yeah.
talk about, the importance of that. Because, I mean, I look at it as just you're just adapting to a different environment. And from what I've seen, I mean, you're killing it.
Well, thank you. I hear what you're saying about code switching, and it differs, I think, in different industries. So with news, I can say what I had been critiqued about over the years is having an authoritative presence and voice and a certain news-like sound. With sports, you have a little bit more flexibility to show your personality more and to not code switch as much. But to your point, with CBS being the brand that it is, CBS is not Bleacher Report, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't always say what comes top of mind or talk to the guys the way I would talk to you or somebody else, like if we were at a bar.
Right.
So it's a delicate dance, but it's still, for me, transitioning out of news into sports, it's a dream job. So you need me to code switch, I'll do that as long as I don't have to do the death and destruction of news again.
Damn. So now you're in Ohio. I mean, what is it like now? I mean, when you go to Ohio, do you feel like you are promoted, or do you feel like, man, this is more the same? Like, what's going through your head at this point?
I did feel promoted. The way local news is set up is like you start at a small market and they're ranked according to population. So I jumped from market 104 to like market 30 something, and it was a pay bump. So, I was feeling like, okay, I'm doing something. I'm, getting to where I eventually want to go. And also I was anchoring a little bit more. I was doing like the morning show there, which was higher profile. So it was cool. It was a good mixture.
So how intentional are you being when it comes to like building relationships? Because obviously I'm sure Columbus, Ohio wasn't, the ideal situation for you, but how intentional are you being about building relationships so that you can get to a place like CBS?
All along my journalism journey, I have to say a saving grace as far as relationships and just feeling like I have a support system that really understands the ins and outs and the nuances of the job is the National Association of Black Journalists, NABJ.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been a lifeline. That organization has been a lifeline for me from the very start, and being able to vent and network and just have people that have watched my career from a very intimate standpoint with demo tapes and things like that over the years, critiquing my work, giving me advice and support. And those relationships have opened doors, and, people have talked about me before I've even entered rooms because of being a member of NABJ, I have to say.
Wow. So what is it like when you and that's dope, because I know a lot of a lot of people are very involved in that, especially when they had those bigger conferences. You see Jamil Hill and a lot of other people that are, are really involved in it. So, but when you, like you said, when people are talking about you before you come into room, I mean, do you ever feel like there's, at what point, I guess, would you say like kind of pressure comes in? Like, 'cause when did you get the Emmys?
I got them in Cleveland, and that was like 2013, 2014.
So was that for working on that Jim Tressel report?
No, Columbus was before. So no Emmys in Columbus. But Cleveland was for the Miracle in Cleveland with the women that were abducted for 10 years.
Was that the one with that guy on YouTube when they ran to that black guy and he's like dead giveaway? Yeah. Something like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So when you're covering stories like this, do you take these stories home with you? Like,
I don't know how anyone can say it doesn't affect you, especially when it comes to horrific crimes or anything involving children, or just, I think people take for granted because TV, I think, puts this barrier between us. Mm-hmm. That when you're a reporter, you're literally on the front lines. So you are knocking on somebody's door, maybe minutes or hours after a tragedy or the worst day of their life has probably occurred. You can't show it on your reports all the time because you want to have this air of credibility and you're just stating the facts. But it is so draining and it is so overwhelming at times. And that honestly pushed me to a point after some years.
So when you get those Emmys, I mean, what does that feel like? Because the Emmy, that's a word I kind of hear growing up. Like, damn, when I hear somebody got an Emmy, that means you was the best, at least for that period of time. What's that like, getting an Emmy?
It's validating in the respect that all the hard work that you've put in, all the times I told you I cried myself to sleep at night, all the times that different people over the course of my career have told me that I was not good enough or that maybe I should try something else. So many things, there's always adversity in different people's career journeys, but it's just this affirmation that you're doing what you're being called to do and to keep on going. And I don't even have my Emmys. My mom took them and they're in her little, cabinet in her dining room. So I just talk about them, but they're not mine. I guess they're hers.
Congratulations on them Emmys, man. That's major because you got 2 of them, right?
Yeah, 2.
Dope, man. Congratulations. So after Cleveland, you headed back to, you call it P-Town, back to Pittsburgh?
No, after Columbus, I went to Pittsburgh.
Columbus, my bad. After Columbus.
Yeah, it's like a zigzag path. Columbus, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and then New York.
Okay, so New York.
Yeah.
Now, New York is really, and I know you didn't initially start off doing the CBS thing, but what is it like to be in New York? Because New York, I got to imagine that's like a top 2 market, if not.
It's the number 1 market. So
right.
I was
where's it
number 1 market.
Right, number 1 market. What is, so when you get the call for New York, was that something that you went out for? Did they call you? Like, how did that happen?
I did go out for it. I applied again online, not knowing if they already fulfilled the position, if I had a shot among however many other candidates that were applying at the time. And it felt like, divine intervention, like it's meant to be that they selected me out of all these people. And the station that I went to was the number 1 station in the country. So
in the country?
Yeah. So you can't get any higher than, local, at the local level, this was the station to be at.
How's that check? Is it a lot better?
What'd you say?
I said, how's the check? The check is a lot better?
Oh yeah, I was yeah. I was good. But I think, that comes with the territory, just being in New York and LA, certain cities, cost of living. But yeah, I was good.
That's dope, man. So you in New York. What type of news are you covering now in New York?
You can imagine with New York,
everything.
There's all types of crazy stories. So, man, a subway slashing is like a Tuesday afternoon, right? Like that's a norm, unfortunately, in the city. So you can do anything from crime to, a terror alert to you imagine it. And being that WABC was the station, they also do things internationally. So I got sent abroad for a few stories. It was crazy.
Do you ever feel pressured to cover certain types of stories when you're doing that? Or do the stories come to you? Like, how do you kind of decide on what you're going to talk about on a day-to-day basis?
I don't know if I would use the word pressured. I place pressure on myself and how I tell stories about us, and how we are represented on the news. How different stories are selected are usually, how major they are depending on, what's unfolding on a given day. So in a city like New York, if there's, a 10-car accident or if there's a double homicide, usually, unfortunately, the homicide will lead the news. But the key, I think, with journalism is finding those stories that resonate with people that are a little more positive or that, show some semblance of the human spirit, that aren't those, strictly crime stories that resonate in people's minds and hearts. And that's how you distinguish yourself as, a storyteller.
Man, so how long were you reporting, I guess, general news before you got that call to be with CBS?
I was with ABC for 4 years, ABC New York for 4 years.
So that's quite some time.
Yeah, it was a long time. And I had a boss at the time who knew I love sports, and I switched my agents too, which sounds a little self-centered, but everybody usually has an agent in television, so that's just the way it is.
So when you have an agent, and you switch your agent, is that something that, like, when you make a decision like that, are you like, yo, you're not bringing me the work that I want? Is that kind of why you did that?
Yeah, that's perfect. And what you said, I have no hard feelings towards the other agent I had before, but I had been expressing to her for a number of years how much I love sports and I wanted to do a combination of things, and she wasn't bringing enough sports opportunities. So I went with someone else who, has mostly sports talent. And ironically mentioned Taylor earlier, so we have the same agent. And this woman is a Black woman who's with WME, and she represents a lot of Black women in sports and entertainment.
So when you're in New York and you go to the number one network essentially in the country, what type of pressure is it to kind of remain number one? Because now
it's cutthroat.
Oh, really?
It is cutthroat. I've had, in the movie scenes where everybody's like a press horde following somebody. Like if you're following a suspect, like, why'd you do it? And what do you have to say? Or you're trying to get a government official and we're all together. I mean, it is elbows, and you're trying to get the scoop, and you're trying to find an angle that another station doesn't have. There's no chill. There's, barely time. Like I was saying, I didn't eat a lot of days because I didn't want to miss something. So, I'm going in different apartment buildings. You know how large apartment buildings are in New York. I'm knocking on every door like, well, maybe this person saw something that person didn't see, and this station doesn't have that person, it's.
But now when you're in New York, you're not having to edit and carry all that equipment, are you?
No, that was the upside. I had a photographer who did that. But yeah, it's still long hours. There is no clocking out. People think like, oh, you got a 9 to 5. Like, no, news is 24/7. So I don't even know how many years ago it was, but the box truck person on the West Side Highway that ran over a bunch of people, it was on Halloween some years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was getting ready to go to a Halloween party that evening. And then that happened right at rush hour. And I had to stay at work until 11 o'clock, and I'd already been at work since 8 a.m., so that was just one of many examples. You don't have a typical job. Your stress level is not typical. Nothing is typical.
So when you're in New York and you got to get those type of stories, and I guess you, like you said, you vying for position against other networks. I mean, sometimes like when I watch like the president or somebody talk, and then everybody's like, oh, I got a question. Like, how do they decide who they're going to pick in that situation? Is there some type of pecking order or something?
No, it depends. And I've never been a part of the White House press corps, and I don't envy anybody who has had that job. So that setting depends, or is totally different than, a local setting where I'm knocking on somebody's door post-tragedy, or if I'm going to Mayor de Blasio's press conference or Governor Cuomo's press conference. If I've interviewed both of them a number of times and they recognize me and they know the type of work that I have done, and it's been pretty fair and balanced, they might be like, okay, AJ, you go first. What's your question? It's very subjective, and it's situational.
Cool. So, okay. So you in New York for 4 years, and now talk to me about how that process came. Like, how did you land that gig?
Well, my boss at WABC at the time knew how much I love sports. And when I went to her and I just changed agents, I asked her if I could freelance on the side for CBS, if she would be open to that idea. And I have to thank her. Her name's Camille Edwards. She said yes, because usually you have these binding contracts that's your face and your brand, belong to a certain network. You can't be on both. But being that it was sports and it wasn't conflicting with ABC News at the time, she let me do both. And I started just doing like a game here, a game there, and CBS kept calling me back to the point that it was like, well, if I keep saying yes enough, to these different games, my salary could be equivalent to what I'm doing with ABC, and I could have a little more fun and less stress, and this is what I really want to do. So it just kind of came to a head. Like I had to make a decision if I wanted to stay and, pursue the news path or, pursue my dream. So it's like my life has come full circle. I started in sports at ESPN, and now I'm back into sports.
So when you go to, and you're covering those stories, is it national games or is it just like local, like professional teams like the Giants and the Knicks? Is that
They're all national.
Oh, really?
Now, with NFL, there's regional blackouts.
Well, not now. I mean, when you were freelancing.
When I was freelancing, they were still national college games.
Wow.
For CBS Sports Network. So there's a CBS, the NFL on CBS, and then there's CBS Sports Network. So I was working with, they're all obviously the same company, but I was working with CBS Sports at first. And then just last fall is when I started doing more NFL for CBS.
Damn. So when in your first big story that you covered that was sports related, did you have to pinch yourself at all? Like, what was that like? I mean, because reason I asked, I'm a huge sports fan. I grew up in Chicago, watching Michael Jordan, even watching this documentary, which I want to ask you about too.
Oh man, The Last Dance.
Yeah, what was that like being able to cover? Because when I was in DC, I wanted to work in sports marketing. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had an internship with the Wizards, so I got to. I was doing marketing, so it was like lame stuff, like putting the brochures in the on everybody's seats. It was like real easy, but I got to go to all the games, and of course Jordan was on the Wizards for like 2 years when I was at Howard. But for you to be actually covering these folks and asking them questions, like what was that like?
I felt like a super fan, but I couldn't show it. To your point, like I've always loved just being a fan of different games, being a fan of football, being a fan of basketball. So now getting to talk to the stars of each game before, during, and after it's a surreal experience. But I think my experience in news and having to interview different mayors and governors and senators and people that are, important in their respective titles, it's allowed me to have this composure that, yeah, you're a big deal, but you're going to answer these questions. You don't get starstruck per se, but you still appreciate the greatness that they possess.
Your CBS is like paying these cats basically because you guys got the rights to the game, so they got to talk to you. You know what I'm saying? You're not pushing nobody out the way no more.
No.
Like, what is that like? Like, yeah, you got to come see me. You basically a boss. You Pam Oliver status. You know what I'm saying?
I want to be. I think a lot of people don't always realize that what you see on Sunday is just the end result of what we do throughout the course of 3 or 4 days. So we get in town before the game and we have all these meetings with the team, with the coach, down to different players that we anticipate that we're going to want to talk to or even talk about throughout the game. So there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of research. So post game, I'm not having to throw bows and knock people out of my way, but I already have, built some semblance of a rapport with whomever I'm interviewing because I spoke to them a few days ago. I was watching them in practice. They saw me, I saw them, we communicate. And post game, it's just like, all right, so let's talk about what you just did. Like, this is what everybody wants to know. And, it should be a natural conversation.
Is it hard to separate being a fan from, being a professional sometimes?
Well, for me, as far as NFL, I've yet to cover a Steelers game. So I can't really say, everybody that I've interviewed to date has been a team that's not my team. So I've just been, very professional and kept it moving. But maybe if they assign me the Steelers this year, I'll let you know.
So now that you got the dream job, you're still in your prime. So I know you got some big plans.
I'm still 25.
Yeah, you're still 25. You've been 25 for, quite
some time. Doesn't matter.
Where do you see where do you see sports going now that what's the buzz like now that, with this whole Corona thing going on? Like, how do you think that's going to change the landscape of fan interaction and even, media interaction?
I wish I knew. I think obviously we're in uncharted territory and it'll highly depend on what safety precautions and protocols they can have in place to protect the players first and foremost.
In terms of, future plans, I mean, what are some of the things that you still want to accomplish going forward?
Going forward, as far as my sports career, I would like to do a combination of some studio work in addition to the sideline stuff that I already do, because I know I'm capable of doing much more and I want to showcase that I can do much more. Outside of sports, I've always loved writing, so I would love to do or transition into film and write a few movies or documentaries.
Oh, really?
Not necessarily just on sports, but yeah, I want to get my Ava DuVernay on. Like, I'm reading some screenwriting books now during quarantine to make sure that I have the fundamentals down packed, and there's no excuse, like, just write.
Stories that you want to write, are they about sports? Like, what type of subjects do these cover?
No, everything that I've thought of has been outside of sports. So from, like generational trauma and how that plays out in adulthood to, some things, being a history minor, some things that I've read about in history that I think would be cool documentaries. Like, I just have this running list of interesting topics in my head that I really think would transition well into being on the screen.
So as a sideline reporter and folks in your field, do you have to negotiate your pay? Is that how that works? Or do they just say, hey, this is what it is, take it or leave it? How does that work? Or does your agent do that for you?
My agent, everything is a negotiation. Everything is on the table. So that's her primary job, is to make sure that I'm getting market value for what I do, and finding other revenue streams, whether it's like speaking engagements or if I can do some stuff via social media or print, because I still like to write. I'm really good at writing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, your agent plays a critical role with that.
So like when they rate you as a reporter, like, do they like bring you in a room and say, yo, you were stuttering right there? Like, what happened right there, AJ? Like, what is that? Like, what is the feedback like when you're getting critiqued?
That's a great question. CBS, I have to say, has the most detailed feedback I have ever received in my entire broadcast career. Everywhere else has been periodic, or if I sought it out, maybe it was given to me. But we have weekly, emails like, I liked what you did here, maybe do a little bit more of this. They will send you clips of everything that, popped up on the screen, so you can go back and look at yourself and critique yourself. And then post-season, you have a virtual meeting with, the boss, and he, goes down the list of what different producers, because it's not always the same producer or director or camera crew that works with you with these games. So each time you do a game, everybody writes a report about everybody that was involved. And then post-season, you get to hear like the summation of everybody's reviews.
So are the reviews something that you read, or are they playing it back to you, like, right here, this is where you could have asked this question, or this is what you could have did a little bit better here?
It's a combination. It's mostly printed out, like what different people have said. And that's when I said the clips that are sent to you, where you can see your own work. Usually you're your own worst critic, right? So anything that I've noticed about myself, I've probably caught or tried to correct before it's become like a pattern that's been, critiqued by others. Like when we were watching ESPN SportsCenter as a kid, it was like conservative in terms of you didn't get to show like your personality like that. Now it seems like they want you to debate. It's like a lot about hot takes. Is that something you can see yourself doing? It's funny you say that, because even though I've been with CBS, different places have called. Hopefully, the CBS doesn't get me in trouble with CBS. So I've done some auditions with some other places, and that's the format of every audition. It's like debate style.
Is that
if it's not debate style,
I'm sorry, what? Is that comfortable for you?
I like going toe to toe about anything from sports to politics. So, whatever you dish, I can take it. Because
one lady that does a good job, in my opinion, what's her name? Josina, yeah.
Yeah.
She was one day she was going back and forth with Stephen A.
Was it Mort?
No, she's going back and forth with Stephen A. about something, and I thought she did like a good ass job. Like, she was like, because he's so over the top sometimes. You don't know if he's doing it for entertainment or if he's spitting facts. But she was, but you can tell her background is facts. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
she kept saying like, no, like she kept just checking him on different things. So I just
Right.
wonder, if you see yourself doing something like that.
Definitely. And just what you touched on as far as facts and what I had said before, as far as being a woman in the sports industry and a woman anywhere else, I feel double minority at that. You work twice as hard to make sure that no one ever questions that you know your stuff, that you're more than capable, and that you exceed expectations. So yes, I'm happy to do debate style. Only thing I'm personally not into is everybody's into gambling now, sports gambling. So another place asked me to audition for like a betting show, and I just don't care that much to like act like I'm enthusiastic about the spread and
Mm-hmm.
parlays and all that. So I give credit where it's due, and people who like that, good for you, but that's not me. And I know that's a wave of the future for sports for sure.
Tony Romo's contract,
Winning.
I mean,
Winning. I want to be like Tony when I grow up. I don't know what else you want me to say.
yeah, that's nuts, right? I mean, I mean, he's dope though. Like he
He's
basically
beyond dope. You've seen how ESPN is trying to restructure Monday Night Football, and they
yeah.
still, in my opinion, won't have even a chance at really competing with the numbers that Romo pulls in. Like they're like, oh, Booger's out, and who else is tested?
Nah, you
like,
can't compete.
whatever.
You can't compete. Just like ESPN, they try to compete with that Charles Barkley, Kenny Smith, and Shaq. They try to get Paul Pierce and Chauncey.
It's a different energy.
Yeah, like
totally different energy.
Like sometimes I remember, like I would tune in just for the post game. You know what I mean? Just to hear, like, what they gonna say. Like, what do you think about that? Like, how anchors? Do you call yourself an anchor or a journalist? Because I don't want to mess this up.
It's whatever.
What do you think about
both.
Our analysts? I guess analysts can sometimes be more popular than the actual players. I think that's like crazy, and you could and now is the time where you can do it because of social media.
Right.
Like, I mean, Barkley's obviously a basketball Hall of Famer, but when he says stuff like Draymond averaging a triple single, like stuff like that is just hilarious to me. Like, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you
I
feel
think it's
like,
great.
you think it's great?
Because why do we have to have these rigid, antiquated formats from news to sports? Like, just because something has always been done that way, that doesn't make it the only way to do it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really dope, and I agree with you. It's funny and it's compelling, and when you have, authenticity and personality merging in the way that they do it with Turner, it's reflective in the numbers.
So I want to, as we kind of wind down, I want to get your thoughts on this Jordan documentary. Like today, and this is cool, we can talk about this because today they was talking about Jordan was a bully. Jordan's like leadership style. What are your thoughts on the documentary? We'll just start there. What do you think about it?
I love the documentary. Love is an understatement, right? I mean, even if we had sports, even if this was a normal time, I think this is one of the best sports, if not the best sports documentary that I've seen.
Man, and not to hate on LeBron, but it's like you forced to pick a side. You can't just like love them both. You know what I'm saying? You forced to pick a side. But
you can love them both and still agree that one is the GOAT and one is not.
Mm-hmm. So would you say Jordan is the GOAT?
No question.
Oh wow. Jordan calling his teammates a hoe and a bitch. I'm like, damn. Like as a news reporter, anchor woman, boss, all around boss that you are. Like when you hear stuff like that, because I know you can't report everything. What is that like? I guess it kind of humanizes people, but what is it like when you're in environments like that and you witnessing stuff and it's your job to report stuff, but it's off limits?
I don't even know how to answer that question because you're in such a intense competitive atmosphere, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't judge anybody per se about what they are saying or doing to get themselves motivated to perform at the highest level. And obviously I've not, been on that level. A lot of people in the media could only wish to have attained, that sort of success in sports as an athlete. So yeah, I'm not pressed to like run my mouth and tell anything that I've seen or heard, but yeah, you see some crazy stuff.
Do you think you could have played with Stan? I mean, not with Stan, with
Saying,
Jordan.
like,
You think you could have
could
played
I
with
play
him?
with Jordan?
Yeah.
That's a disrespectful question. No, hell no.
No, I know, not like that. I'm just saying, like, if could you play with a person that was like that, a teammate like that?
I think, and it's crazy, the Steve Kerr situation, right? Of all the
Mm-hmm.
people that Jordan was like laying into, Steve was the only one that actually hauled off and stood
Right,
up for
man.
himself,
I think
right?
that's got something to be with little man complex. Cause I'm over there like, hell no,
Maybe, maybe not.
ain't nobody hitting me like that. I'm gonna get one lick in.
Maybe not. I don't know. I just know Steve was not about that. I think different people respond to different motivation, right? Or, some people are motivated less by verbal attacks and more by example. But could I have played with somebody like that? I can't even imagine being in the same atmosphere as somebody that talented and
Right, that good at what
whatever
they do.
psyche,
Yeah.
right, whatever psyche it took to get him to that level. When Larry Bird said it was God playing that day, right? Like when they beat the Celtics or the Bulls beat
And
the
that's
Celtics.
and what's so crazy about that, they're saying these things and they're still competing against him. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
It's not like they're
right.
retired and they like, all right, we're gonna give it to Mike. They're like,
They gave him his
yo,
roses at the time.
they like he's the best ever. Like, and they
Right.
still like that's to me, that's nuts, man.
I'll say this for me personally. Anger has been a great motivator for me over the years in getting me to where I needed to go or psyching myself out to do some things. I'm not saying I'm on Mike's level of like verbally attacking people or anything like that, but in my head, like convincing myself like, oh, I'm gonna show this person, hey, I have nothing but respect for the mental toll it must have taken to be at that level of greatness at all times throughout his career.
Have you seen yourself having to be protective of I guess your brand more as you elevate? Whether it's maybe you can't run with the same people, maybe you can't take certain pictures because I mean.
Not as much. I feel like birds of a feather. Everybody that I've been with over the course of Howard and beyond, they're doing really dope things, and nobody's doing anything that I'm like, oh, I need to separate myself from you.
Mm-hmm.
Living in the New York City area though, and a lot of things being at your fingertips at all times, like at times I'm very cognizant of like, is this a party scene that I necessarily need to be at, or is this a social setting that I necessarily need to be in, and just overall being aware of my surroundings, but not so much protective of my brands. I think good people attract good people generally, and we are old enough or young enough to do it, but old enough to know better, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah,
that's where I'm at in life. Sometimes, I still let my hair down, but I'm mature.
What does AJ right now say to the aspiring AJ coming into Howard that wants to get 2 Emmys, but they don't know where to begin? What advice are you giving to that person?
I heard a sermon some years ago that God doesn't place a vision in your mind or have something weighing on your heart that you're not capable of achieving. Like it's purposely there, right? So whatever's calling you to do whatever your dream may be, do it. Never accept no. Your network is more powerful than maybe you realize, so don't be too prideful in asking for help at different points along your journey, and stay the course. Like there's going to be some adversity, there's going to be some challenges, but it is definitely worth it in the end. Just keep on believing in that conviction that, God has placed in you for a reason, because that's your calling, that's your purpose.
Social media, in terms of how you can, like, how do you think is, I don't know if you want to say leveled the playing field or changed how you kind of get into your profession? How has that kind of impacted your world in terms of how you can get started, being an analyst or being, I guess, an influencer in the sports world or as an analyst? Because now, I mean, I bought this mic, it came, I got this now, you can get a following, How has that kind of changed the game in your world?
It's changed it a great deal in that there aren't limitations anymore that you need to go through an entity and have somebody validate that, what you have to say and what you have to contribute is worthwhile. You can do it on your own, and you can do it in your own way and show your personality and have your own flair and style that's not so rigid and restricted and formal. And I think that's really dope, like I said before. So I wish that this had existed long ago when I started, and maybe I could have been a little more creative and not followed this traditional path and flexed in a different way earlier on. But I think it's dope, and I would encourage anybody who's starting out to definitely use social media and, just hone their craft. Not to say you should turn your back on more traditional routes, but use both, like build your brand through social media and still maybe get, the tools that you need at the ground foundation level with a traditional outlet, if that's your dream.
What are people saying about AJ Ross when it's all said and done? What do you want your legacy to be?
This may sound vague, but I want my legacy to be that I represented us well, like us as just Black excellence, and Black people are amazing. And I would hope that my legacy also is in tandem with me helping people in general, whether, like I said, pursuing film or continuing on this sports route and using my platform to just give back and hopefully create jobs for other people. It's never been like this selfless pursuit for me, other than trying to make my parents proud. I'm trying to be in a place that I can reach back and pull forward and help someone, go further than I've ever gone. So that's the whole point of it all, right?
Absolutely. And you definitely getting there. I mean, you're doing your thing, man. You always been doing your thing, though. I'm gonna just ask, not questions, like I might say A or B, and you just got to say B or A, whatever your answer is. But you can't give any justification. Or I might just say a word or someone's name, and you just say the first thing that comes to mind when you hear that. Okay?
I don't know what names you about to throw to me.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, I guess.
All right, so first word, Delta Sigma Theta.
Best.
Who you know or what you know?
What you know?
Stephen A. or Skip?
Stephen A.
Ho Chi or China Wonder?
Ho Chi.
Drew Hall or Carver?
Drew.
Gail King?
Nah.
Pam Oliver? You petty. You gonna text me tomorrow like, yo, can you take that part out? Y'all work for the same company too. Petty. All right, go ahead. Pam Oliver.
So what? Trailblazer.
Jamel Hill.
Dope.
LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan.
Howard Greeks or Howard athletes?
Both? What?
Hey,
Greeks?
I try to catch people up. Homecoming better as an alum or as a student?
Ooh, alum. I know what I'm doing now.
Yeah, for real. You go there with a purpose. You get in and you get out. Tim's or Jordans?
Jordans.
Cool. All right, so hit the last. This is Jeopardy now. We're going to do.
Oh, God.
So Jeopardy, let me just see what you know about Howard. These are some very, very easy questions.
I hope they're easy.
No one has ever got any of these wrong. So
yeah, right.
Don't feel any type of pressure. I'm sure you'll do fine. Which team at Howard has won 5 straight MEAC championships?
5 straight MEAC championships? I'll go with the soccer team.
You knew it won basketball. No, it's the girls volleyball team. Volleyball. It's okay. Finish this sentence. Reared against the eastern sky.
Oh, man, I don't know the song.
Proudly there on Hilltop High.
Oh, Howard, we sing of thee, blah, blah. Yeah.
What show created by a Howard alum was loosely based on the Howard experience in the 90s?
Oh, you're talking about Hillman?
I don't know, Emma. What's Hillman?
Oh, A different world. I'm sorry.
There you go. There you go, man. That was about to be a blooper for real. Hillman.
No, I'm like Hillman.
Okay. Name a bronze medalist that attended Howard University, track and field.
David Oliver.
Good. Last question. Name a Super Bowl champ that attended Howard University. This person was at Howard while you were there.
Oh.
Come on, you can do this.
Antoine Bethea.
Yeah, Antoine. So yeah, he's gonna be on the show too. So if somebody wants to contact you, do you have a blog, a website, or a way that people contact you? Like if they want to contact you for professional reasons or just to get advice about something?
I'm on LinkedIn. I have Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. So yeah, all that is available.
Dope. All right. Magna cum laude, Delta, AJ. Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.